What's up, potato quality editing Chloe again. This is the beginning of part 2, follows on from my previous video, which was part 1, where I talked about my bartending jobs in the Eastern Cape, and in this video I'm just carrying on from that video, talking about my retail jobs mostly, and then the beginning of my waitressing job in Cape Town. Anyway, watch part 1 if you haven't. Here we go, part 2.
Cool, so then I moved to Cape Town and was kind of frantically looking for a new job. And I started looking for bar work, but I didn't really find anything. Oh my god, actually, I did hand my CV in at one bar that was interested. So I went in to interview with them and just like ask them some questions about the job. And my first question was obviously, what's your pay per hour? And he says 15 Rand an hour. So the minimum wage in South Africa is 20 Rand. Like legally, you can't pay people less than 20 Rand an hour for any kind of work. And here they were, just like no scam, 15 Rand an hour. And like where do I go from there in an interview? Like, do I actually have anything more to say here? I don't think so. And I was like, hey man, you know that's pretty illegal, right? And he was like, yeah, it's above my pay grade, I can't really fix it. And also all of our workers are illegal immigrants who are just looking for a job that will pay them in cash because they can't open a bank account. Yeah, it's a mess. It's messed up. So anyway, I ended up getting a job at a like a little stall that sells fancy tea in a mall. And I was like vaguely excited about it because the kiosk is like very close to my house. It's like a 2-minute walk maybe. And I expected it, you arrive at 9 and I was expecting cool, like 9 to 4, 9 to 5 maybe. And on my first day I arrived and I was like, what time do we finish? She says 7 p.m. So that's a 10-hour shift in a mall, in a box about like, gosh, maybe like 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. And I asked if we get a lunch break. She said no, you just eat in the stall. So 10 hours in a mall with no lunch break. I was getting paid a little bit more than 20 Rand an hour, but no tips for this job at all. So my 20 odd Rand an hour was like it. And it was an incredibly boring job. It was 10 hours, staring at teapots, sipping on the tea samples, trying to get fancy people to buy fancy tea. Mall people are weird. I'm sure you know if you've ever worked in a mall. Some people come to the mall, they spend 3 hours in the mall. The mall is this big. I don't know what they're doing. You've got like, somebody walk past. You've got like classy old ladies, and then you've got like trashy old ladies who wear like bright lumo like boob tubes and mini skirts, which like lots of alternative people, lots of like lonely men who have no one to talk to, so they would just come to the mall every day to bother the tea ladies. So yeah, but I mean, in this job mainly what was messing me up was, again, no tips, no lunch break, 10-hour shift. It sucked. So I got a call from somebody that I'd previously handed in my CV to, and it was at a vintage clothing store, like very much in the center of town. The hours were better. The pay was like a little bit more per hour, but because I was working fewer hours, it worked out to be about the same as the tea place. But I just thought that I would enjoy the work a little more because I do like actually care about vintage and secondhand clothing. So I took the job and started working there. And it was okay. I liked the shop, I liked the merchandise. I was doing a lot of data capturing, which for me, that kind of like monotonous, like clickety-clack on a computer work is like pretty relaxing. I was listening to podcasts, listening to music. But there, again, were a couple of big problems. The first being that we were getting paid 200 200 rand a day. Again, no tips. And I found out very quickly that that's almost nothing. Because when you're making like that little money, every purchase that you make feels like you feel so much guilt about it. You're like, I want to buy, you know, something to eat for lunch, and it's whatever, let's say 50 rand, and then you're like, that's like a quarter, yes, a quarter of all the money that I made today. You know, sometimes you have to go grocery shopping and you spend, you know, probably like, I mean, a 200 rand grocery shopping trip would be nothing. So it's like always going to be like between 200 and 300 upwards, depending on what you need at the time. And at the same time, I'm thinking like, I gotta pay rent, I gotta pay rent, I gotta pay rent, you know? If I keep spending my money, and you know, I wanna have a social life, I wanna see friends, and I wanna like go out for drinks and stuff. And like every money I spend, I'm like, this is money that I'm not using to pay rent. You know, again, I'm lucky, I'm privileged because I have some savings that I'm using to facilitate this little like window period of my life. But still, it's not a nice feeling, and 200 rand a day is nothing. The second thing that really bothered me about this job was that the lady who ran the shop put like crazy markup on the products, and I knew because I was doing the stock intake, so I could see how much she spent on an item and how much she sold that item for. And it was things like, she would write in her little book, it would be like 30 rand street couple sold for 250, 30 rand secondhand sold for 350. No jokes, no jokes. She was I saw in another place she was buying band tees from Chinatown, like AC/DC, Metallica, the Beatles, I think a couple others, can't think of them now. She was buying them for 85 rand from Chinatown and selling them for 350 in her vintage clothing store. So people obviously thought they were paying like vintage band tee prices for vintage band tees, when in fact they were buying like 300% markup Chinatown crap, you know. Super icky selling this stuff to people. And again, I really care about secondhand fashion, I really care about recycled textiles, and I just felt like, I mean, this person had so much stock, enough to fill her whole shop, enough to fill like 4 different storage facilities that she was paying rent on, and I was like, why not just pay people decent amounts of money for their products, especially if they are like vulnerable people. Like, how can you really be okay with paying somebody who lives on the street 30 rand for an item of clothing that you're gonna make 320 rand profit off? That's horrible. And then secondly, like, sell your products for an accessible amount of money so that people can have nice secondhand clothes, so that you can sell secondhand clothes, so that you're not just hoarding secondhand clothes just so that you can have like a prestigious price tag on your secondhand clothes. Anyway, that's my anti-capitalist rant of the day. So I got offered a job at a bar that I used to go to like during happy hour after work, and I'd gone there asking if they needed a bar lady, and at the time they didn't, but when they next saw me, they were like, hey, are you still looking for a job? Because we've had like 3 waitresses quit. So I quit and I started the waitressing job, which is where I'm working now. It's going fine, except that like I must mention, because of the nature of this video and what it's all about, I mean, I found this really, really messed up. The place that I'm working doesn't pay workers for training shifts, and they didn't tell me this until the end of my first training shift. So I worked a full 8-hour shift, starting at 8 in the morning, ending at 4 in the afternoon. It was blazing hot that day. I was doing my best, my dude. You know, I quite like waitressing. It's a lot like bartending in a way, a little bit more moving around, but I like that, like on my feet, helping people out, being polite, meow, meow. And I was really like trying to make an effort to show that I was like good at what I was doing and I wasn't like messing up, and I was learning all the systems and like learning the menu and like taking a lot of initiative as well. And then come the end of my 8-hour shift, my feet hurt, I have blisters, and my boss tells me that I don't get paid for this entire 8 hours of work, and I have to do 3 training shifts. So that's a grand total of 24 full hours of work that I'm doing for this restaurant. And I'm not useless, okay? I'm not bad at this job. I'm pretty good at it, in fact, I think. I haven't worked like a very busy shift yet, and I know I'll get better as I work. I'm probably not gonna be like the best ever, but like, I don't think I was doing 0 rand and 0 cents worth of work the whole day, you know what I mean? So I feel like if they had told me that beforehand, so that I could like be emotionally prepared instead of feeling like I'd just been like punched right in the stomach. And secondly, I feel like they could pay us like a little bit, you know, like 10 rand an hour or less, I don't know. They're paying me 20 rand an hour when I start working, but I have to work 24 full hours before they start paying me. So that's rough. Anyway, so yeah, oh no, actually I still have more to talk about, because here is where I wanted to discuss a little bit like the difference between me as a middle-class white person working these jobs and the case for somebody else. So the first thing is that I'm choosing to do this. I have a degree. I had a very, very blessed and privileged experience getting that degree in terms of finances, and I could get a job in my field, but I don't want to. I'm burnt out, I'm tired, I need a break. And I have this like weird period of time between now and my graduation where I just don't really want to start anything or settle down. I want to do some traveling, so I'm choosing this minimum wage situation. But pretty much all of the people that I've worked with have been black people, either, you know, from Cape Town or else like foreigners from like Zimbabwe, and so on. And most of them haven't had much of a choice at all in what work they are able to get. The person who was working with me at the vintage store was working 7 days a week because he had a kid, he had a family, he needed to provide, and he didn't have time because he was working 7 days a week to find something better, even though the boss of the vintage store treated him horribly. I didn't hear a nice word about her. All he ever said about her was that working with her was hell. She screamed at the workers in front of customers. She didn't care how you felt. You couldn't sit still for 5 seconds even if there was nobody in the shop. She was always undermining you and criticizing you. And it just sounded like a really, really abusive, toxic workplace environment, and he was stuck with it. Another thing is transport. So because of the way that South Africa's history is, generally people who have money are concentrated closer to, you know, stuff. And people who don't have a lot of money are pushed like out into like the very peripheral suburbs, if not into the townships. And so a person who is working the same job as me, you know, I have the benefit of being able to walk home, take the bus home, take an Uber home. And a lot of the people that I've been working with are having to, you know, walk long distances to the taxi rank, take a taxi through traffic. It takes 2 hours. Let's say you finish work at 6, you get home 8:30. You have time to like do a couple things, whatever, go to sleep, and then you have to also leave home 2 hours earlier than I would have had to in order to get to work on time because of the taxis and the traveling and the commuting. And yet you just don't really have that much of a choice. You just have to do it, and people are just out here surviving on 4 hours of sleep, and it's crazy. It's wild. I you know, can't fathom it, and I'm so grateful that I have the privileges that I have, but at the same time, like, it's a mess. It's a mess. So yeah, there are a lot of ways in which South Africa needs to do better for people, and a lot of ways in which people need to have more compassion for others, and a lot of ways in which businesses need to start, you know, not just treating their workers with like the bare minimum of, you know, what you could get out of an employer-employee relationship, but like actually wanting to like take care of your employees to the greatest extent that you can within the amount of like profit you're bringing in from your business. You know, like at the vintage store, my wage could have been paid off by the profit that this lady made on selling one item a day, you know? And it's just like, you could be doing more, except you're not, because you're using all your extra money to pay for 4 different storage facilities for your products that you're too stingy to sell for normal prices. Anyway, so yeah, this has been a long ramble about being a service industry worker. I'm suffering, and I'm doing my best, but it's really hard, and I just feel like everywhere I go, it's really hard, and it's harder than it should be, and it's even harder for people who aren't me. Anyway, sound off in the comments below. Let me know if any of what I spoke about surprises you, or if anything that I spoke about is something that you relate to, if you've had similar experiences, if you've had worse experiences, if you've had good experiences. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. If you like me and want to see more from my channel, you can click the subscribe button down below, and I make new videos whenever I can. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. And yeah, thanks for watching. I love you. Bye.